When James Brown walked onto the stage in Detroit on August 16, 1977, and announced Elvis Presley died today, the audience didn't know how to react. Some people gasped, some people started crying, but others, mostly black audience members, stayed silent. A few even looked annoyed, like they were thinking, "Why are you telling us about a white man dying? This is James Brown's show. We came here to forget our problems, not mourn Elvis." James could see it in their faces, the division, the complicated feelings, and he understood it. Elvis had gotten rich off music created by black people. Elvis had gotten opportunities that black artists like James had to fight 10 times harder for. So why should this audience care that Elvis was dead? James took a deep breath, and what he said next would force everyone in that arena to confront the complicated legacy of race, music, respect, and grief. It was supposed to be a normal show. James Brown, the godfather of soul, performing at Cobo Hall in Detroit. 8,000 people packed into the arena on a Tuesday night. The energy was good. People ready to dance, ready to celebrate, ready to forget about their daily struggles and lose themselves in James's music. James had been in his dressing room around 5 p.m. when his manager, Charles Bobbitt, knocked on the door. James was going through his pre-show routine, vocal warm-ups, stretching, getting mentally prepared. Charles walked in looking like he'd seen a ghost. "James, I need to tell you something." James stopped mid-stretch. He could tell from Charles's tone that something was wrong. "What happened?" "Elvis is dead." James straightened up slowly. "What?" "Elvis Presley. He died this afternoon. Heart attack. They found him at Graceland. He was 40. James sat down in his chair and didn't move for a long time. Elvis, dead, at 42. James was 44, only 2 years older. 2 years. That's all that separated James from whatever had killed Elvis. Heart attack. From the stress, the pressure, the decades of performing, the lifestyle, could have been James, could be James soon if he wasn't careful. But more than the mortality reminder, James felt something complicated twisting in his chest. He'd known Elvis. Not well, but they'd crossed paths over the years, talked backstage at a few shows, had mutual respect despite occupying very different spaces in American culture. And now Elvis was gone, and James didn't know how to feel about it. Charles waited a moment, then asked, "Do you want to cancel the show? I can make the announcement. People will understand." James thought about it. 8,000 people had paid money, taken time out of their lives, come to see him perform. Was it right to cancel because a white performer had died? Would people even care? Some would, others wouldn't. The black community had complicated feelings about Elvis. Respect for his talent, resentment for his privilege, appreciation for his acknowledgement of black music's roots, anger at how the system had elevated him above the creators of that music. "No," James finally said. "I'm going on, but I have to say something. People need to know." Charles nodded. "You sure?" "I'm sure." When showtime came, James walked onto that stage carrying the weight of Elvis's death and everything it represented. The band launched into the opening song, and James performed with his usual intensity. But something was different. The audience could feel it. James was there physically, but his mind was somewhere else. After the third song, James stopped. He held up his hand, and the band cut out. The arena went from loud to silent in seconds. 8,000 people waiting to see what James would do. James walked to the front of the stage with just the microphone. No music, no distraction, just him and his voice. "I have to tell you all something," James said, his voice carrying through the arena. "Elvis Presley died today." The reaction was immediate and divided. Some people, mostly white audience members, gasped. A few women started crying. You could hear actual sobs from different parts of the arena, but other sections, predominantly black, stayed silent. Some people's faces showed confusion, like, "Why are you telling us this?" A few people looked annoyed. One man near the front shook his head and crossed his arms. James saw all of it, the division, the different reactions based on race, and he understood every bit of it because he felt the same conflict inside himself. "I can see some of you don't know how to feel about that," James continued. "Some of you crying, some of you wondering why I'm even bringing it up, and I understand both reactions." The arena was completely silent now, everyone listening. "Elvis Presley was a white man who got rich singing our music," James said, and you could feel the tension in the room ratchet up. White audience members shifted uncomfortably. Black audience members sat forward, surprised that James was being this direct. "That's a fact. Rock and roll didn't come from Elvis. It came from us, from black communities, from people who created music when they had nothing else. When society tried to silence us, we sang louder. When doors were closed, we made our own stages." People were nodding now, especially the black audience members. This was truth they knew. "Elvis took that music," James continued, "and because he was white, he got played on radio stations that wouldn't touch black artists. He got opportunities we couldn't get. He made millions while the people who created the sound struggled to pay rent. That's not fair. That's not right. And if you're sitting there thinking, why should I care that Elvis died? I hear you. Your anger is valid." The arena was completely still. James had just validated the resentment that many black Americans felt toward Elvis. He'd spoken the uncomfortable truth that people usually danced around. "But," James said, and that one word hung in the air, "I want to tell you something else about Elvis Presley. Something that might complicate how you feel." James walked across the stage, looking out at the faces in the crowd. "I met Elvis a few times over the years, talked to him backstage, and you know what I learned? Elvis knew. He knew he was white singing black music. He knew he got opportunities because of his skin color, and it bothered him." Some people looked skeptical. James saw it. "I'm not saying Elvis was a saint," James clarified. "I'm not saying the system wasn't racist. It was. It is. But Elvis, as an individual, never claimed he invented rock and roll. He always said he learned from black artists. He always credited Little Richard, Chuck Berry, Big Mama Thornton. Always, in every interview, he made sure people knew where the music came from." James paused, letting that sink in. "When promoters didn't want to book black artists on the same bill as Elvis, he fought them, said he wouldn't perform unless they included us. When radio stations played his version of songs instead of the original black artists' versions, he told them to play both. He used his privilege to try to open doors for us. Did it fix everything? No. Did it erase the fundamental unfairness of the system? No. But it was something." The mood in the arena was shifting. People were thinking, processing, reconsidering their initial reactions. "Elvis and I talked once about race," James continued. "This was maybe 1969, private conversation, just the two of us, and Elvis said something I never forgot. He said, 'James, I didn't choose to be born white. I didn't choose the advantages that came with it, but I can choose what I do with those advantages, and I choose to respect where this music came from.' And he did. He lived that." James walked back to center stage. "So when I heard Elvis died today, at 42 years old, I felt something complicated. I felt sad. Not because the world lost a white man, but because the world lost someone who genuinely loved this music. Someone who respected us. Someone who used his power, when he could have ignored us, to give us credit." Some of the white audience members who'd been crying looked relieved. Some of the black audience members who'd been angry looked thoughtful. The division wasn't gone, but it was softening. "I'm not telling you how to feel," James said. "If you're angry about Elvis's success, you have every right to be. The system was and is unfair. If you're sad about his death, that's valid too. Both things can be true at the same time. You can be angry at the system that elevated him and still respect the man for how he handled that elevation." James turned to his band. "I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'm going to perform an Elvis song. Not because I think Elvis was better than us, not because I'm forgetting where the music came from, but because grief is complicated, And respect is complicated. And sometimes the best way to honor someone is to do what they loved. James walked to the piano. He sat down, something he rarely did during his high-energy shows. The arena was completely silent. You could hear people breathing. James started playing the opening chords of Love Me Tender. Slowly, carefully, not like Elvis's version, like James's version, soulful, heavy with emotion. When James started singing, his voice was different than usual, not the hard, driving voice of I Got You or Sex Machine. This was softer, more vulnerable, more human. Love me tender, love me sweet, never let me go. Some people in the audience started crying. Not just white people now, black people too. Because what James was doing transcended the racial politics of the moment. He was showing grief, real, complicated, honest grief. You have made my life complete, and I love you so. James's voice cracked slightly on that line, not because he couldn't hit the note, but because he was actually feeling it. The loss, not just of Elvis, but of everyone who died too young in this business. The friends he'd lost, the colleagues who'd worked themselves to death. The reality that he was 44 and could be next. When James finished the song, the arena was silent for about 5 seconds. Then the applause started. Not wild, celebratory applause, respectful applause, the kind you give when someone has shown you something real and vulnerable. James stood up from the piano and walked back to the microphone. Elvis Presley wasn't perfect. The system he benefited from wasn't fair. But he was a human being who loved music. And today, that human being died. And that deserves acknowledgement. That deserves respect. Even with all the complications, especially with all the complications. James looked out at the audience. Can we be sad about Elvis's death and still be angry about racism? Yes. Can we respect Elvis as a person and still demand justice for black artists? Yes. Can we mourn someone who had privilege we didn't have? Yes. Because life is complicated. People are complicated. And if we wait until someone is perfect before we show them respect, we'll never respect anyone. The arena erupted in applause, not divided anymore, together, because James had given them permission to feel everything they were feeling without guilt or contradiction. James performed the rest of the show with more energy than ever, like he was performing for Elvis, like he was performing for everyone who'd died too young, like he was performing to prove that at 44 he was still here, still fighting, still alive. After the show, backstage, Charles Bobbitt asked James how he felt. James thought about it for a long time. I feel sad, James finally said. Sad that Elvis is gone. Sad that we live in a world where talent and hard work aren't enough if you have the wrong skin color. Sad that even in death people can't just grieve without it becoming a political statement. But I also feel like I did the right thing tonight. I told the truth. All of it. The good, the bad, the complicated. And that's what Elvis deserved. Not simplification, not erasure. Truth. Charles nodded. The audience felt it. Good, James said, because that's all we can do. Tell the truth and hope people hear it. Years later, when people asked James about that night, the night he paid tribute to Elvis Presley, James always said the same thing. Elvis and I came from the same place. Poverty, broken homes, music saved both our lives. The difference is, America loved him immediately and made me prove myself 1,000 times. That's the truth. But it's also true that Elvis never acted like he was better than us, and that mattered. So when he died, I mourned him. Not perfectly, not simply, but honestly. And that's all anyone can ask for. If this story of complicated grief, honest acknowledgement, and refusing to simplify complex legacies moved you, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that you can respect someone while also being honest about the unfair systems they benefited from. Both things can be true. Have you ever had to grieve someone whose legacy was complicated? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more incredible stories about the moments when legends chose truth over simplicity.